The songs on Spotify across the U. S. Michael Jackson first.
All right, get this bad boy set up. Okay. All right, Charles A. Lindbergh. Yeah, I know. There's a severe thunderstorm. In the ground, she said, "I am the one." In the ground. Damn. 2 hours of chilling. That should be enough. She told me her name was Billie Jean. There we go. In the ground, in the ground, in the ground. Now, dang. Why am I not on the highway? Go around begging young girls. Oh. Alrighty. Okay. Oh no. Is that the hail? Okay, we got this. Okay. Oh my god. This does not look super promising. Okay, I'll take raindrop. That's all we're gonna experience is raindrop. Please. Just only raindrop. Oh man. Oh, Oh man. Okay. 3.5 miles till we join the highway.
On Friday, still try to step in when it ain't my time. I'm still me, don't get me wrong.
Wow.
But I got better since you got gone. Swear it was like, oh, damn, I'm finally back to being who I am. When we were over, it was overnight. Like came on, it all felt right. When it all went wrong, you turned me loose. Wasn't until
So far, it's just raindrop.
but it turns out me and you together might take so long. Cause I got better since you got gone.
It, I can't tell if it's like it's just raindrop. So
For a little while there,
if it's any heavier, I'm gonna turn around.
my mama was the devil, now we're talking love.
And like any heavier,
My friends you hated ain't said one.
like any bigger, anything that isn't rain, I'm turning
Since you
around.
got better since you lost her.
But I would see it on the ground. We're good. Miles. I don't know if that's hail or not. Raindrops.
But I never slept this good before. I ain't saying you're the weight on my back. I'm just saying that it ain't there no more. Oh, damn, I'm finally back to being who
Mile and a half.
it was overnight. Like came on, it all went right. When it all went wrong, you turned me loose. Wasn't until I knew what turned into. But it turns out me and you together's might take so long. Cause I got better since you got gone.
All right. So far, it's just rain, which is good. 'It's humid. So put some front defroster. 12 hours to Minnesota. So far, an hour down. We're not driving into the hail, we're driving away. No hail, just rain. Make a right turn up here. Maybe it's simple, getting from you. Find me a farmhouse, find me you. Baby, I wouldn't be already gone again. If it weren't for me. Wouldn't stay wondering what's out there. I wouldn't okay, under these bridges would be like the safest place. I could put down these wings. Maybe that's right. Maybe I just wouldn't fly to try. Maybe that tumbleweed me wouldn't leave every end sunrise. Maybe that's the sound. I made farmhouse, I made it. Maybe I wouldn't be already gone. Great. it was for me. Baby, that come away, baby, believe every other sunrise. Baby, I said that, baby, something. Find me the farmhouse, find me. Baby, I wanna be already gone
All right, we're in the clear. We'll start that review session here shortly. Welcome to Captain Castillo's Late Night Jam. 12 hours of IFR. So we're actually in Fort Morgan right now. And funny story, there's actually a sugar refinery right here. And there's also a motel somewhere on one of these exits. And I used to manage it. And it stinks up here. Like when it's windy and it's hot. Oh my God. And in the winter, when it's cold and stinky, it smells like farm, refinery, and just stinkier than Greeley. Yep. Here we go. Fort Morgan. And then we got what? The Super 8? What is that? Or what is it called now? There's a motel right there by that Phillips. What is that called? Well, you can't see it. It doesn't have a sign, which is That's interesting. Doesn't even look like there's anybody there. Sad. Anyway, we're still in Colorado, but we're gonna get out here pretty soon. Yeah, Fort Morgan State. Let's get out of Colorado. Oh man, I left the air not circulating inside. Crap. I messed up. It stinks. We have 105 miles till our next energy. But we avoided all the hail. Oh, hit some precipitation. What does your flight say? All right, we're still in the SIGNET area. Severe thunder. Like, I don't think it can get any redder than this, but we're gonna leave this area here pretty soon. Approximately like 60 miles, 30 minutes. We're gonna be away from all of the bloody red. And then it's smooth sailing. There is nothing ahead, except in Minnesota, unless that passed. But so far, we just gotta leave this part, punch through, and we're good. Here we go.
We're in brush. 20 minutes to a hospital. That's great. We're in Lyman, Tornado Valley. Let's see, what airports are nearby? KAKO, Akron. Caco. And let's see what the weather, the meets are. It's IFR. Got good visibility. Broken at 2,200. All right, not bad. High pressure. Okay. Not a happy day. Dirty traffic. I don't see anybody flying, so that's good. All right. That's tough. Akron. Right. So far, so good. Sorry, Frank. Alrighty, folks. We are going to be exiting this in about 20 minutes. Somebody got it going, man. Yeah.
Right. Got a horrible fuel rate. 27 miles per gallon. Fully loaded. 75 miles per hour. Horrible fuel efficiency. All right, it looks like we are losing altitude, so that's good. Downhill, bro. Come on, get better. Come on, DJ. You're gonna make me put my study material on. We got 1 hour of music before we jump on for study, so stand by. Okay. Open up your heart. Open up your heart. Everything's gonna be alright. Hold on. Everybody, hold on. Oh, okay. Looks like we're going 72 knots. It's got a 12 knot, about a 10 knot headwind on a 046 heading. That's pretty cool. We might leave this a little bit sooner base on our heading. Good news. Everybody. Come on, DJ. All right. Keep losing fuel efficiency. Too fast. Too fast, too heavy. So, what do you go? hard. Cool door from the stores to parties. You more like love star shit. I'm more of the trips to Florida for the dove orders. Using the water straight from a page of your favorite author. And the weather's so easy. Man, why can't life always be this easy? She in the favorite dance was so sleazy. I get it all like, what are you easy? right, study time.
A steep bank causes more. Let's take a look at why air-driven attitude and heading instruments could fail by examining the vacuum and pressure systems. The air-driven gyros, which stabilize the attitude and heading indicators, are usually called the vacuum instruments. This is somewhat of a misnomer because they are driven due to a differential between ambient pressure and the pressure in the case of the instrument. In some installations, a partial vacuum is created inside the case of the instrument, which allows air to rush into the case through ports or nozzles, which aim the incoming air onto the vanes of the gyro rotor. The rotor is spun just like the water wheel or a turbine. In other installations, air under pressure is pumped through the nozzles into the case with the same result, that is, spinning the rotor. Modern systems have the pump gear-driven. For most light single engines, the pump is truly a vacuum pump, and that reduces pressure in the cases of the instruments. Some twin-engine and pressurized airplanes use a pressure pump to spin the rotors. Positive pressure is needed to activate de-icing. No matter how it's done, the result is the same. That is, incoming air striking the vanes of the rotor. The system also has relief valves to control pressure and vacuum, and a means of filtering incoming air. The vacuum gauge, or its equivalent, is an important part of your instrument scale. A low vacuum warning is better because the light will get your attention even if you have not scanned it. Most dry vacuum pumps have a life limit between 500 and 1,000 flight hours, or 6 years, whichever comes first. For pumps that are worked harder and used to activate de-icer loops, the manufacturer's life limit can be as short as 300 hours. High-performance airplanes can be much more difficult to fly partially than the instrument trainers that most of us use to earn our rating. Some airplanes are required to have dual pumps, and there are also standby systems available for other airplanes. Twin-engine airplanes have a pump capable of operating the entire system mounted on each engine. The standby systems include dual vacuum pumps that operate continuously. Electric pumps activate when needed, do the same thing as the engine pump. There's also a system which uses the reduced pressure in the engine intake manifold to suck air out of the gyro cases. Now that you've seen how the vacuum and pressure systems function up close, remember to pay attention to the vacuum gauge during your flight and during the run-up to make sure the system is operating properly. Precession causes several errors in the attitude, which are quickly corrected by the erection mechanism. Acceleration and deceleration errors are caused by speed change. Acceleration causes the horizon bar to move down, indicating a nose-up attitude. And deceleration makes the horizon bar move up, showing a nose-low attitude. Precession errors also become holding out of turns. After a skidding turn, wings are level using outside references. The attitude indicator will show an angle of 3 to 5 degrees opposite the turn which was made. Coordinated turns also cause precession. The amount of precession is directly related to the amount of turn in the bank used. A steep bank causes more than a shallow bank. Maximum error is induced by making a 180-degree turn. During a 360-degree turn, the second 180 degrees of turn cancels the error caused by the first 180 degrees. After a coordinated turn, using the natural horizon to level the wings and maintain a level flight pitch attitude, the attitude indicator will show a 3 to 5 degree angle opposite the turn. Both the coordinated and skidding turn errors last for less than 15 seconds. Class-equipped airplanes may or may not have a vacuum system. Some manufacturers install a basic vacuum system to drive the backup attitude indicator. The representation of the attitude indicator displayed on the primary flight display
is driven by some type of attitude, heading, and reference system. This system is electrically driven. It generally uses internal sensors and accelerometers in conjunction with GPS or airspeed information to determine the attitude of the airplane. The derived attitude is sent to the display as a representation that is familiar to the pilot. Discover which instruments are the right ones to use. Now let's move inside the cockpit and consider the three fundamental skills you must develop as you become an instrument pilot. These skills are instrument scan, instrument interpretation, and airplane control. While these skills occur separately and sequentially, they become integrated smoothly and positively from the airplane on any flight path. Your instrument training may be in an airplane with analog, round, dial flight instruments. Alternatively, you may be planning to use an airplane with an LCD representation of the flight instruments. This configuration is more commonly referred to as a glass cockpit. We will cover both types of cockpits throughout this course. Your concentration should be on the type you will be flying, but a basic knowledge of the other systems can be helpful. The instrument scans for analog and digital instrument systems are similar. Instrument interpretation may be different. Aircraft control could be identical. Most analog instrument panels are arranged in the T pattern. The airspeed indicator is on the top left where you can see it without diverting your scan from the runway during takeoff and landing. The attitude indicator is in the center, in keeping with its being the center of attention. The right top of the T is the altimeter, and the vertical right of the T is the heading indicator. The turn indicator, or coordinator, and the vertical speed indicator fill in the blanks on the left and right sides. If there is any standard organization to analog instrumentation on general aviation airplanes, it usually stops with the 6 flight instruments. Other controls and gauges seem to be positioned on a space-available basis without rhyme or reason. Glass cockpit instruments are produced only by a few manufacturers. The companies use similar organization and representation methods for the instruments on the primary flight display, or PFD. 5 of the 6 flight instruments are comparable across the systems. Representation of vertical speed does vary between systems. The major manufacturers fill either the full screen or the top half of the screen with the attitude indicator, making this ever-important instrument highly visible throughout your scan. Airspeed and altitude are represented by tapes with a digital readout of the actual value. The airspeed is to the left, and the altitude is to the right, just as would be found in the normal T pattern. The slip skin indicator, the ball from the turn indicator, is represented by a rectangle or trapezoid under a triangle at the top of the attitude indicator. The shape below the triangle substitutes for the ball and can be interpreted in the same manner. Heading indications may be given by a round HSI or an arc below the attitude indicator. Most manufacturers allow you to choose your preferred presentation. Rate of turn is found at the top of the heading indicator in the form of a trend and tick marks. The tick marks will be spaced such that extending the trend line to a particular mark will give you a standard or half-standard rate turn. Vertical speed may be represented by a tape, an angular rotating needle, or simply a vertically moving pointer. The location of the vertical speed information varies greatly even within different models from the same company. Backup analog instruments, generally an attitude indicator, an altimeter, and an airspeed indicator, may be located anywhere. To develop your scan in any type of cockpit, sit in the airplane and learn where all the switches, indicators, and controls are positioned. Being able to find controls, gauges, and switches without running for them will enhance your scan. An external power source will be very helpful for this practice with a glass cockpit. If you are renting the airplane, insist on always using the same airplane, or at least one that has the same arrangement of instruments, radios, switches, and indicators. As you become more proficient, you'll be able to cope with other arrangements, but why increase your burden during training? If we describe an effective scan as looking at the right instruments at the right time, it's important to know which instrument is the right one. To know the right instrument, you need to know the information that each instrument can give you. Flying an airplane on instruments is done exactly the same as controlling the airplane using the natural horizon. Regardless of the references used, the four fundamentals of flight, straight and level, climbs, descents, and turns, are all done the same way. All maneuvers involve controlling pitch, bank, and power. When flying visually, the only outside reference for pitch control is the relationship between the natural horizon and the nose and wings of the airplane. All other pitch references are inside the airplane. The only outside reference for bank control is the relationship between the natural horizon and the wings and nose of the airplane. All other bank references are inside the airplane. All references for power control are inside the airplane. When the natural horizon is visible, it is used to position the pitch and bank of the airplane. Most of your scan time is devoted to recognizing the relationship between the airplane and the natural horizon. So the only difference between instrument and visual flight is the horizon used. Instrument flying substitutes the attitude indicator for the natural horizon. Recall that an earlier name for the attitude indicator was the artificial horizon. When controlling the airplane by instrument reference, the attitude indicator is used to establish and maintain attitudes. The attitude indicator is not a performance instrument. It provides you with a direct picture of pitch and bank attitude. Other instruments must be scanned to determine the performance resulting from the attitude shown. For example, maintaining the level flight attitude is no assurance that the altitude is remaining constant. To confirm that the airplane is in level flight, you have to check the altimeter. A wing's level attitude does not necessarily mean you are in straight flight. The heading indicator has to be used to check heading. During your instrument flying, most of your scan time will be spent on the attitude indicator. You will realize that your instrument flying is much more precise than your visual flying. This is because now you are paying more attention. You used to spend time looking outside the airplane. There's no one scan that works for all pilots. Proficient instrument pilots scan all the instruments with the attitude in up to 2/3 of the scan time. As your instrument experience and capabilities increase, you know what to look for, when to look for it, and response to it. Scan patterns in glass cockpit airplanes are similar to those used for analog instruments. The difference is where you look for particular. A scan advantage in a glass cockpit is that the attitude indicator can stay in sight while looking at the other instruments. A potential disadvantage is that the tape-style instruments may require more time to focus on the value being portrayed. Proficient instrument pilots in analog cockpits can determine the approximate position of the needles with a quick glance. Tape representations require you to read the value to look for changes. As you begin instrument flying, the usual tendency is to scan too rapidly, looking at the instruments without knowing exactly what you're looking for. Slow down. Get the message from an instrument before going to the next one. When the instruments become more familiar, you won't need as much time to get the message. As you gain experience, you learn to adjust the scan rate and sequence to suit the flight situation. There are a number of scan errors you should be aware of. The first of these is omission of an instrument or instruments. This usually happens when attitude change is made without checking the performance instruments. An example of omission is leveling off from a climb by establishing the level flight attitude on the attitude indicator without cross-checking the effect of the attitude change on the altimeter. Emphasizing one instrument is another error that is closely related to omitting an instrument. The difference is that you do not omit an instrument, but rely too much on another instrument. We can probably do a reasonable job of maintaining altitude using either the natural or artificial horizon. However, precise altitude control requires frequent checking of the altimeter. Fixation, or staring at one instrument, is also a common error. Fixation is most apt to happen as you approach an altitude during a climb or descent, or a heading during a turn. You are determined not to go through the specified altitude of heading, and thus stare at the altimeter or heading indicator, while other instruments cry out for attention. Typical students tend to fixate on the bank instruments more than on the pitch instruments. This is because the airplane is more stable than bank. In a moment, we'll look at the four fundamentals of flight. We'll describe not only how to fly our instruments, but also help you discover which instruments are the right ones to look at as you fly.
For decades, the actual instruments that pilots used for instrument flying were the same in almost every airplane. The standard six-pack features an attitude indicator in the middle, surrounded by individual instruments for airspeed, altitude, vertical speed, heading, and rate of turn. While these steam gauges are still the norm in most airplanes, glass cockpits are increasingly common, so it's important to understand the differences. Unlike traditional cockpits, which rely on vacuum-powered instruments to display attitude and heading, glass cockpits use solid-state sensors. These attitude heading reference systems, or AHRs, are much more reliable than mechanical vacuum pumps, and the heading indicator does not require constant resetting. The large color screens on glass cockpits are another advantage. These are easier to read than smaller analog instruments, especially in turbulence. They can also present more information, including winds aloft, nearest airports, and the active flight plan. But while the advantages of glass cockpits are real, there are some things to watch for when you transition into one of these airplanes. There isn't a lot of glance value on an integrated glass cockpit. Standard six-pack actually get a lot of information from the instruments without reading every specific number. If the airspeed indicator is pointing straight down and the altimeter is pointing straight up, you can assume your airspeed is somewhere in the middle of the green arc at your level. Not so with a glass cockpit. You'll need to pause and read the exact numbers on the airspeed and altitude tapes. 3 habits will help you avoid the tapes as they bounce around in flight. First, set the bugs on the primary flight display whenever possible. Most glass cockpits have knobs that allow the pilot to set bugs for the altitude and heading. And some even have one for the airspeed. These are used to drive the autopilot, but they can be great reminders for hand flying too. If your clearance is to fly heading 270 and maintain 3,000 feet, set the bugs for those values and follow them. You'll find it much easier to monitor heading and altitude by taking a quick glance at the bug than continuously reading the numbers on the screen. Second, get to know how the trend lines work. These are usually magenta lines next to the tapes on the primary flight display, showing what the airspeed or altitude will be 6 seconds in the future.